Hello, everyone. My name is Lewis Harris. Thank you for joining us for this podcast episode. I created the Record in Progress podcast as a reaction to the 2024 election results because I was one of the folks who was surprised at the election results. And what that told me was that I needed to do more work to understand both sides of the issues facing our country and our world. And so created the Record in Progress podcast to share perspectives, stories, and narratives to create understanding and the pathway forward towards a unified society for all of us. And so I am privileged to have a good friend of mine who I've served with in the community, someone I respect in the community who I think is a spiritual leader in his own right and has a perspective that I think everyone will gain something from. And so I'd love to have you introduce yourself, sir.
Well, it's Lee. Glad to be here. Glad to reach out and be a part of this. This is exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on with me. How do you identify yourself, Lee?
That's a tough, loaded question. Again, wearing many hats, like you say, being a self-appointed community leader, so to speak, just a regular person. I could say, from my career to my experiences to my past, future goals, so to speak. I guess just human being. That's the best way I can put it. That'll be my official answer. Just that plucky Homo sapien.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
I also identify as a funky Homo sapien. So there's we're all in the same boat. No. But
Yeah.
okay, excellent. And so what state and city do you live in, Lee?
State, Washington State, and reservation is where I reside at.
Excellent. And so what do you do? And I know you do a lot of things. So
I have my hands on a lot of things. So I am a road conductor for Burlington Northern Santa Fe. So I run choo-choo trains all day. I also do import, wholesale of fireworks, and I run a custom paint studio as well.
excellent. So you busy. That's great. So, and the next question is, what is a credential that you use most often to sell yourself on job applications?
To be honest with you, the one thing that I sell myself most on personally is I just sound expensive. And I think that when people have this mindset of something being expensive, they think it's better quality. If you pay more, you're going to expect more from it. So I think if someone comes into my studio, I quote them an astronomical number. They're willing to pay that because even if I just put a drop of something, they feel like they're getting that quality of their money's worth. So I think for me, that kind of escalates my worth and my value by having that mindset.
Excellent. That is extremely important for just individuals to know their value, right? I'm glad you said it that way because that's something that I question. Do all of us understand our value when we have so many things in society that tell us this is how you identify your value or this is how you evaluate your value and stuff? And it's like,
Well, I think for society, the problem being is a lot of people think that they have to just token, like go through college, go through
right,
these motions or steps, but they have say a bachelor's or their undergrad or master's degree to hit a certain level financially. But then you hear these like stories of people doing things way back and with no education whatsoever because they're talented in sport or an artist, so to speak. The thing is, I think when you start from your foundation of having this mindset, it's not saying that I'm the best at what I do. There's a lot of people out there that pay way better than I ever could. But the
sure,
fact is, I value what I do. So if I
right,
set that benchmark of like, I may not be the best painter, but I'm the best at what I do for my little area.
sure,
That is how I'm able to charge more. So that's how I put more into it because I believe in my product that way. I think as a society or as a person, especially by today's standards, being even a person of color, we're already taught to be lower than or less than. So there's not much that we can aspire to look at to be on that higher element or the higher plane. It's like saying being a person of color walking on the basketball court, they think, oh, this guy's really good because, he's tall or because he's a person of color, as opposed to if it's a short person, it's not, okay, they're not
right.
very good. So that person has to work twice as hard. But I think if you automatically evaluate
There you go.
yourself as like, hey, I'm just naturally good at this, or hey, this is what I do, and you have a little passion behind it, people see that as well.
And full disclosure, like your art is exquisite, and your mediums are what like helmets, motorcycles, skateboards. So
Yeah.
little shout out. If you have a do you have a business name or a top name just in case somebody
Just it's just me. Yeah, just
you got to know him. to get that. You got to know. You gotta,
I'm
if
not
you
that
want
hard to
something.
find. Not that hard to find.
Work, work. Awesome. All right, Lee. So let's get into the juice. How did you vote in the 2024 presidential election?
So how I voted again, I think this election really mattered on so many levels. For me, even being a railroader, a lot of people don't realize in the railroad, we run about 90% of America.
Right.
Anything that you have in your home, on your person, comes off of your train. So there is a presidential order that's put in that as union workers, we're not allowed to strike.
Okay.
So the railroad can say whenever they want, we're not allowed to strike. We're federal employees. So a lot of the presidential election, they really focus on railroaders. And that's the thing that gets overlooked is because houses don't look for us. And there's a lot of things behind closed doors that happen that run downhill that we may not see. So I think a lot of people say with this whole like new people taking office, changing taxes or changing gas prices, things like that. Like the reason a lot of that stuff changes is because of the trains. Trains bring oil, trains bring coal, trains bring goods and services. And how the trade runs is how it affects gas prices. It's not who's in office, it's how they prioritize how we work. So as a railroader with the union, they fight the company, that fight how we work and when we work. So if the train slows down, doesn't bring oil, doesn't get there, doesn't make gas, depends on prices because it's not availability. I think there's just like a bigger global thing a lot of people don't realize. But they
Mhm.
think, oh, this person's office. Well, it's not so much the person's office, it's how they view things. And again, not to like disclose your company business, but you look at who owns BNSF,
Right.
there's somebody very prominent. There's one man that owns a company and he owns subsidy companies that BNSF uses.
Right.
So it's like if I this podcast, if I want to speak to you, I own the computer that I'm talking on. I own the company that produces the computer. I say, hey, this is the kind we're going to use for this podcast. I'm making money both ways. I think
Right.
that's something that is it's definitely money based. No matter who's sitting in that seat, it's going to be money based. It's just a matter of which way does it go. Like they say, the
Right.
pendulum swing.
Sure. So, so just want to just to be clear. So, I part of the purpose of this podcast is to create understanding, and so just to reiterate the question. So, how did you vote in the 2024 election? And if you did or if you didn't, if you voted third party, like if you voted Trump, it doesn't matter.
No, I voted definitely towards the Democratic way.
Okay.
uh, leaning that way for sure. Because I think for me, it's not so much the financial needs. And that was like, I think the election came at A, it was financial, or B, it was social justice. It wasn't like an in between. I think that one party was very focused on the finances and one party was focused on the people. I think that's what divided our
Right.
country so much is because a lot of people are focusing on their safety, their well being, their health,
That's right.
and other people are focusing on taxes and their finances. And
Yeah.
I think the two parties will never see one the same. Because if I'm a say low income person with health issues, I'm not worried about tax breaks right now. But if
Right.
I'm a business owner making seven figures plus, I'm worried about the taxes. I'm not worried about health care. So
Right.
I think that's the divide that a lot of people aren't seeing because you just won't understand if I'm making say $100,000 a year,
Right.
like my tax bracket's different for somebody that's working in McDonald's. So we're not going to have the same conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, at that exact same point, the tax bracket thing, the Democrats and Kamala, she's like, if you make $400,000 a year, like your taxes are going to go up. She was very clear about that. So anybody of over 400, like rest assured, probably going to happen. But you also have folks who are making under that amount, but are still making a lot of money relatively, like
Yes.
100,000, 200, whatever. And when you have enough means to live the standard of life you want to live, you won't compromise on social issues or morality or whatever, because one, your bills are paid, you got enough food on the table, and two, like you have enough to be able to care about others. You know what I mean? And so that's a great point that you mentioned, and based on the election results, we know that there was a lot of folks who the economic issue and the safety issue was paramount to them. And so, we can't really shame that because survival is a first. You know what I mean? For us nasty Homo sapiens out there, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, and I think that people are realizing when it comes to the tax end of it, like myself,
Yeah.
single, no kids. So I pay an absorbent amount of taxes,
Sure.
but I also have other means of bringing money in. I also have ways to move that money around or
Sure.
invest that money where it's like you make a certain amount and then you got to make money to protect your first money.
Sure.
So
Sure.
to say that someone's making $4,000 a year, I don't
Right.
really feel like they're flipping burgers. They made that much money. Now they're
Right.
going to get taxed. If you're making that much money, you've already got to the place of how to protect your money and
Sure.
move your money around. So they can say
Sure.
whatever they want as far as like, yeah, 400,000, they get taxed 20% or this or that. That's fine. But they just have to do one step prior to like, okay, well, I invested in a 401k or I moved it over to an IRA or I moved it over into some property.
Right.
And now I don't have to pay tax on the 400,000. It's just like,
Right.
it's like giving a warning shot to
Sure.
what's coming. This is what we're going to do. We're going to
Right.
tax the rich. So the people that don't have a lot of money think, hey, they're taxing the rich. This is great. No, they're telling the rich, hey, if you put me in office, I'm going to tax you. But that gives them how much time to plan
Right.
move that money around. Like
Yeah.
it's like people right now, it's what, November, that are planning their tax return in January, February. Like, I'm gonna go buy a new
Right.
car. I'm like,
That's
they're
right.
already for money they don't have. But
That's
the
right.
people that have money, they're planning to hide it
That's
because
right.
tax season is right around the corner as well.
That's right. And so it's interesting. The other piece of this, which is another reason why I wanted to make this podcast, is because we have this in America standard that about a lot of things, right? Money
Okay.
being one of them. And not only money per se, but money and how taxes, how we're allowing the government to tax us, right? And so
Yes.
you're talking about these different financial vehicles that people with a lot of money use to avoid the direct income taxation. And
Yes.
that's really important because when you don't have a lot of money, you don't think about things that way, right? And but that doesn't mean you can't actually operate in a way similar to them to create tax saving. We're not going to get like totally into like the financial, pitfalls of this country per se, but it's interesting because we're talking about people who have enough money and we're talking about people who don't totally fit that category. And
Yeah.
like, where is the unifying factor for both of them? And so I don't know if I had that answer, and if you got that answer, like please share. But that's something that's worth, I think, digging into a little bit more.
I think the unifying factor for that is like again, if I have $100 bill and you have $10, how are we gonna be the same? It really breaks down to the person.
Say that.
Because again, it's the person that's going to say like, "Hey, $10 is enough."
Right.
It's almost like that. It's that
Right.
goldfish mentality. You're going to grow to the size of your bowl.
Right.
I have friends that make say $20,000 a year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're happy as a clam, living their best life.
Right.
And I have friends that make $200,000 a year, and they're struggling. And but they work super hard to make sure that they always have money coming in. What I realized, I've done well in life financially. I think like just the first I made $1 million, a lot of money.
Mm,
One, it's not like the suitcase you like in the movies. It's a very small little brick.
sure.
And I was by that token a millionaire. I bought a pack of gum. I'm no longer a millionaire.
Right.
So now you have this $1 million. You have to make money to protect that $1 million. And it's
Right.
just like, now where does the cycle end of like enough is enough? I've, made $20 million. Like, is that enough for a single 45-year-old man
Right.
to the rest of his life? Or do I need to keep buying lavish things and move money around and investments and 401ks? And, now you're going off of money that's on my phone, money that's on my computer, money that's in an envelope in my safe, whether it's just
Right.
kept in hand. Because if you come to me and say, hey, I can't feed my kids, well, I got some Bitcoin or I got this and that. Like again, but does it really have a value to me? What is the point of having that? So again, people invest their money in art, or they invest their
Right.
money in property or cars or things like that. And I think that's the thing where society has this ideal that like the kid flipping burgers is gonna spend his entire paycheck on a pair of fancy tennis shoes or a
Right.
designer belt or something like that because they want to feel like they're living like that lifestyle because of what society says this is how you have to be. This means you've made it,
Sure.
opposed
And
to
so part of what you're saying is that there's so much relativity in how individuals determine not only their own value but also what they need to survive, right? And
Oh yeah.
survival is a spectrum. It's not, you know, for some people survival is like food on the table today, whereas for some people survival is, my next property that I'm purchasing or something.
Yeah.
And so there's no would you say that there's a standard of what the bare minimum of a human, at least in our society or in America, should have to have their basic needs met? Would you say there's a standard for that, or do you feel like there's a lot of subjectivity on that still?
I try to live a lot of my life very black and white, which is hard by today's standards. To say I'm very black and white in the sense that you can count on me and you can call me, but part of me is that rebel spirit. I'm not a rule guy.
Yeah,
I always tell I'm not a rule guy. I'm not a Boy Scout. And a lot of things
right,
have
right.
a gray area
Yeah.
because to your question, like, okay, what would be a standard that an average American household should have? There's so much diversity in our society to say like there's two dads or two moms or single mom, single dad. That
Mhm.
how do you really set that goalpost to say this is what the average house should be, the average family should look like?
Sure,
Because there's adopted kids, step kids pass away, parents
right.
pass away, grandma moves in. Like, there's so many moving parts to say we can say a very blanket statement like a roof over your head, food in the fridge, and everybody has
Sure,
a bed like that. That's great, but that's
right,
not reality of our world today. It just isn't
right.
because things happen, addiction happens, sickness happens. I mean, dad gets sick, and then what happens? And I think that our society is a constantly morphing and growing and
Totally.
improving. I
Absolutely.
think the problem is we as a people don't adapt as well as things change.
Say that.
You know,
I agree with that 100%.
like right now, I think a lot of people get to this mindset where they're always going to be surviving. They're always going to be like having to save and always have to think, I may not be like that. Like you look at a lot of people that like are pretty well off.
Sure.
They dress like $1,000 car, just bummy, not fancy haircuts, things like that. But the ones that do that extravagant stuff, they're the ones
Sure,
that who never have nothing. It's like overnight
sure.
success. They can't spend that money fast enough because they have this
Right.
mindset of like, hey, I have to spend it because it could go away, or I have to spend it because I have to project to society that I made it.
So I'm holding on to this idea that you alluded to about there's no standard of value for individuals, right? And there's no standard of what it takes to be a happy, fulfilled person. You know what I mean? A lot of what you mentioned is that we can't adapt fast enough to our changing worlds. And I would agree with that, especially with policies on AI or technology or whatever, right? We just don't adapt fast enough for the change that's happening. And so, would you say is it futile to come up with a standard, or like, do we create a standard that encompasses everybody?
I think there should be, I guess the standard should be acceptance.
Say
And that
that.
and that's the thing that people cannot seem to wrap their head around.
Say that whole thing. Oh my gosh. Yes. No, that's it. That's it. That's bro.
Yeah. That's how I see it. Just accept the way that people are, how they are. And I think the thing is, again, you have a lot of old thinking that this is how things should be,
Yes.
how a guy should be, how a girl should be, how a kid should be. And then the one person that goes way off script or coughs, and all of a sudden they're just like, oh man, this person, they're just the devil.
Yeah.
You can't celebrate someone's individuality. We automatically have this mindset of like, this is how it should be.
Mm,
I'm a person that couldn't listen to projects. I can't like country music.
right.
I think a lot of people get closeted in so many ways. Like, I think it's
Right.
such a staple thing. Like, okay, say I'm a person that's identified as homosexual or something like that. Like, that's closeted that way. The thing is, there's people that are, say, straight, they're also closeted in things they like, opinions or
Right.
feelings and stuff like that. Like, could be a straight male, then like something like that. But I can't admit to my guys that I
Right.
do this or I do that. So I have to be closeted and really hold my feelings down of how I feel or who I am because I'm afraid of the judgment from my people or my peers, the guys that I love the most. Like to say I can be with all my biker buddies and If I say, yeah, I watched a movie today, I cried, oh man. So I have to hold this in and just wait to cry in the shower or something. You know what I mean? Like, and the thing is that
Yeah.
that creates a society of lies because you have to, if you call me and say, hey, what you doing? I'm just like, I'll make up a little white lie
Right.
because I don't watch my homework movie because it's that season and I'm
Right.
going to be crying. God forbid Lewis comes over and sees me crying because you'll think lesser of, as
Right.
opposed to me being full disclosure to say, hey man, like, want to come watch a homework movie? I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna ugly cry, but we're gonna have this moment.
Right.
Yeah. And people cannot do that. You have to fight this, oh, I'm a tough guy, or I'm gonna, pull by the bootstraps, or I'm,
Yeah.
this is who I am, or I have to fit this mold, or I'll be way extreme about something. Just say I'm a guy that likes this, or I'm a girl that likes this. It doesn't mean I'm that extreme case. That
Right.
just means this is my favorite song, or this is what I do.
Yeah.
And I think society puts definitions to words that don't need to be there.
Say that. See, that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, Lee, because I do see you as a spiritual leader with the sweat lodges and the folks that join. And folks who like live that spiritual life or have that as the core of their being, they have a level of authenticity about themselves that emanates to other people and attracts people. May or may not have that to that degree. But the point is that I'm honest with myself and the value that creates for you is universal. Like anybody can find that value in themselves and have a better quality of life with themselves just by being honest with themselves. That is extremely important. And I wish as a society we saw the value of doing that more than we do. I mean, you've seen the rise of people being self-aware or taking care of themselves or all this stuff, but it's not a standard that's communicated in a way that should create that universal acceptance that you talked about. You know what I mean? And God,
Well,
that's
I think the thing about today's society, and I say society, we're a part of it.
of course, of course.
If you're going to sum it up with one blanket term, any party, any financial standings, whatever you want to call it, it's fear. And if for someone to say that they're not scared, then it's a lie because everyone
Right.
is afraid in some level, afraid of like
Sure.
they relapse. They're afraid of their
Sure.
safety. They're afraid of losing their job, losing their home, losing their kids or their mates or
Yes.
whatever the
Absolutely.
case may be. And I think the thing about our society is like, I'll give you an example. Think of Superman. The thing that makes Superman great is he understands what his kryptonite is.
Right.
He knows what his weakness is. And I think for a lot of society or people, including you and I, is people will not admit what their kryptonite is. And until you
Right.
can admit that, you can't go further as a person. We can't
Right.
go further as society. Until we can admit that, like, I'm fearful of this type of person,
Sure.
then we can move forward as a people. Because as a people, until I can admit I can be a better person for me,
Hmm.
I can't be a better person for you. If
Right.
I'm lying to myself, how can I be truthful to you?
Right.
And I think until people can
Right.
admit what their kryptonite is, it's not a matter of even working on it or getting through it, just admitting it. Just to
Yeah.
say, hey, this is my weakness. My addiction is skateboards and motorcycles. I got way too many,
Sure.
you know. That I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I
Right.
take care of business and this so to speak, but I'm still shopping marketplace every morning, see what's for sale. I'm still
Sure.
painting skateboards every day, my morning coffee.
Right.
That's a kryptonite that like is it something that I'm skipping work on or not paying my bills to feed that habit? No, I'm not. But I'm working extra hard to maintain that habit. And
Well,
that's the kryptonite that I guess, and I don't know if that's a really good example or
no, no,
shining
no.
example.
But it's okay though. Your example is absolutely okay because one, that's what you identify your kryptonite to be. But two, you've also done the internal work that's needed to reconcile like past trauma or the harm that you. So you are fundamentally in a different place with yourself that other people don't always get the privilege of being able to arrive at. Everybody's different, but you also have a level of understanding about yourself and other people and the way things work that allows you that seemingly not bad addiction.
Yeah. the thing I think again is like, a friend of mine, they're very big in the Black Lives Matter movement and all these
Sure,
different things.
sure.
And it's great. It is, don't get me wrong. But the problem being is they don't mean it. And I think with, and again, I don't know if someone will win followers for this or be hated of it is I don't need you to recognize that Black Lives Matter. I
Mhm.
need to know that I matter. Until I realize it, your stickers are cute. That's great. If you want to feel like you're making a difference by blacking out your Facebook profile or putting a bumper sticker on your car, that's
Yep.
great. But you know what? When I'm in line at the store, don't hold on to your purse. When I pull
Right,
next to the red light, don't roll your window up
right.
because I don't want to generalize this at home token board housewives that has nothing to other social media
Sure.
or this like super socially woke teenager or whatever. But
Sure.
the thing is, they're not affected by it
Right,
because Black Lives didn't matter 2010. Black Lives didn't matter 2000. They didn't matter back in the riots. They
right.
didn't matter until it was social media and other people say they're woke or they support. You could put a flag in your front yard until I move in next door, and it's a problem. So until the black man or black woman can realize that they matter, or anyone that like say transgender or different economic whatever,
Yeah,
until they can do that, because we had this debate even at my work. It was like
yeah.
people are like, I don't understand why what's up north, this whole Trump thing, and this and that, and people saying their fears taken away. I don't think it's their fears taken away. I think it's the fact that like now people are more open about the hatred of things because they feel they're protected. So until a kid that's 15, they feel a certain type of way, can tell, hey, dad, when the football game's over, can we talk? But instead, they're closeted. Or again,
Right,
I work in a very roughneck environment. We're way roomers. We're not Boy Scouts. It's not
right.
a Bible study in the break room. You know,
Sure.
we run trains all day and they're big, they're loud, and these guys, they're not soft. So
Right,
just go there and say, hey, you guys believe in angels? Like this is not a
right,
conversation you're gonna hear around there.
right.
So until as a society can do that work at home, this
Yeah.
is my kryptonite. This is my like, hey, you know what? It's okay to be a person of color,
Mhm.
you know, because if I'm comfortable in my skin, that's I'm gonna project out there. But now
Right.
my neighbor doesn't like me because of the color of my skin, it's not gonna affect me. But the thing is I feel me, just this is my opinion, is when I see those BLM stickers, like I'm offended by it
Okay.
because I know you didn't care. You didn't care until the last couple of years. Now, when the revolution's been televised or things like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm 6'9", like 350.
You ain't missing me.
I'm not a small person, covered in tattoos. So when we go to line and store, you think some of these people still like, oh my God, I can be waving at them, this, that. I work with grown men that still are intimidated by me. And it's just like, I'm not a violent person. I'm always smiling. But the thing is, there's this persona that society has of this person is scary. Why is this? Because someone's big, they're
Mhm.
scary. Or why? Because someone's skin color and they're going to be criminal and they're going to be this and that. But they can feel good about posting it, like say, oh, all equality matters, this and that. It's
So
okay for someone to be homosexual until it's their kid.
so a part of what I heard you say was that we've almost been given permission to be real about our fears in society, or the whole conversation about what you fear and like owning that and starting from that place is important. People on both sides voted out of fear. That might be a way over generalization, but the folks who voted for Trump are fearful that there's too many immigrants here and they can't get a job, or their grocery prices are too high. People on the left, they voted to not get Donald Trump in office because they knew he was going to change and affect women's issues and trans issues and a lot of different issues. And so fear, interestingly, is what drove the conversation. That's something I want to explore more. So thank you for bringing that point. That is very poignant. I'm going to go to the next question now because we only got three, not even three really, but that's okay. That just means that there's a lot to unpack.
You brought this on yourself. You know, you
I
should have
know.
called me.